In the matchup between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump earlier this week, accusations and exaggerations flew. And a few facts were thrown in for good measure. But Times' Rana Foroohar says there was one important number completely overlooked in Monday's debate. Rana, Times assistant managing editor and the author of Makers and Takers, is back with me now. Rana, so what was the number?
Productivity.
Productivity. And explain what it is.
All right, so productivity is in some ways the most important metric in the entire economy, right? GDP growth is basically productivity with demographics added to it, the number of people that you have in an economy and how well they're working, how productive they are. Productivity has been flat in this country for many years now, and that's one of the main reasons that you have a slower growth economy, a 2% economy. And it's interesting, of course, neither candidate really wants to get into this, A, because it's a little bit complicated and wonky, but B, because there's not as much that presidents can do about this as they might. It's not like talking about tax policy or, trade. It's really a deeper issue.
And we have a trend line that shows it right there. And it's funny, I feel like I'm working harder than ever, and most of us do, but it has nothing to do, it's sort of a bigger picture issue than that.
Well, there's actually a big debate. Why are these numbers so weak? And some people would say, we're just not measuring the figures accurately. If you think about the BLS and what it's set up to measure, it's set up to measure widgets, stuff coming off of factory lines. So it could just be that we're not having the right numbers. It could also be that it's taking a long time to filter through the economy. If you look back actually to the Industrial Revolution, it took about 50 to 70 years for things like the combustion engine and electricity to really have that productivity knock-on effect. And, with the industrial internet and machine-to-machine communication, it could be that we're on the cusp of a big growth, but we're not seeing it yet.
Right. People talk about the tech revolution, but it's only recently that the giant industrial companies are really absorbing that and digitizing their companies. But there's another argument here that I find really scary, and it's the one put forth by Robert Gordon, the economist, and he basically says, you can explain it for us, but basically says this boom we're having is not doing anything. We've passed our really amazing booms, the other industrial revolutions. The tech revolution now, as much as everyone says about it, doesn't come close to what the others did for our economy.
Yeah, he has the sort of Piketty-esque book of this year, The Rise and Fall of American Growth. It's about 700 pages where he lays all this out, but I'm going to give it to you quickly. I've seen Robert Gordon speak, and he does a little interesting exercise where he asks everyone in the audience to raise their hand. Which would you rather have, your smartphone or running water? Most people would choose the latter. But if you look at the numbers, really what we've seen from the computer revolution in the 70s and certainly from the internet of the web is nothing in comparison to that earlier technological advance.
So how do we boost it? A lot of this is companies and spending, but what else can be done to boost this number?
Well, the thing that's tied most closely to forwarding productivity is advancing education. There's a lot of research to show that as long as education can stay ahead of technology, workers can become more productive. They understand how to use new machinery. You just look at, say, some of the high-tech machine tool factories out there right now. This is robotics equipment that people are using. It's not dirty work on an old-fashioned line. So you've got to make sure that workers have those skills. If you go back to politics, that probably argues for fiscal stimulus around revamping education, infrastructure, workforce training, and companies are indeed starting to do some of that themselves, although in the last few years more money has gone, say, into buybacks and paying back investors than into that kind of deeper investment.
And of the candidates, you mentioned that there's little politicians can do, but this probably argues that Hillary Clinton would be better.
It's the one thing, if you can bolster education, if you can boost infrastructure and tie that to worker training, that would be a good thing for productivity.
And what about voters? Do voters, register this? Productivity?
I think, one of the interesting messages, bipartisan messages, I think that is getting across is the fact that we need new infrastructure. We need to tie that to jobs training. There's going to be a lot of, particularly men, out of work. The number one occupation for working class men right now is driving trucks, driving cars. Think about automated cars coming online. A lot of those jobs are going to go away. You need to have new skills for those people to boost the economy.